Bienvenidos to the Bronze Titan podcast on YouTube. I'm your host, Benjamin Ramos of the Pro Libertad Freedom Campaign. I'm an independent journalist and a longtime Cuba solidarity activist. And once a month, I'll be bringing you a podcast from the international movement to end the blockade against Cuba. Happy New Year, Feliz Año Nuevo to everyone. This is our first podcast of the year, and I hope to bring you 11 more, maybe even some extra. You guys know me; I'm a bit of a wreck and inconsistent, but let's new year, new me. Vamos ver. On today's segment, I'll be speaking with Claudia de la Cruz, Executive Director of the Interreligious Foundation for Community Organization, who'll be sharing her perspective on what's happening in Venezuela and Cuba and overall U.S. foreign policy in Latin America. Welcome to the Bronze Titan, Claudia.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here with you, Ben.
It's wonderful to see you too. Folks, I'm always transparent. Claudia and I have known each other since 1,000 years. We grew up together. We've known each other. So this is family, Claudia's family. She's your family as well. Claudia, before we get into all of this insanity with Venezuela and Cuba, let's educate the listening audience. What is IFCO? What is the Interreligious Foundation for Community Organization, and what does it do?
IFCO has been a bridge builder for so many years, actually 57 years, so over 5 decades. And it has been doing a lot of work, not only in solidarity with Cuba, which is one of its primary pillars and one of its primary values, the support of Cuba and the Cuban people, bringing down humanitarian aid, bringing folks that have never been to Cuba to be able to build relationships with different projects there. But IFCO has also been very much foundational to the Black Liberation Movement. It actually emerged from the Black Liberation Movement as an organization that supported different campaigns and different projects, campaigns for political prisoners to free political prisoners, campaigns that supported farm workers, indigenous communities, you name it. So IFCO, again, has been a bridge builder for many, many decades. It has formed a lot of people. It works with faith organizations and labor organizations and movement organizations. And I've had the privilege of being connected to IFCO for many, many decades, about 3 at this point. And so now I have the honor, the privilege, and the responsibility of leading the organization and working with amazing people and reconnecting with a lot of folks, again, that were very pivotal in my formation too. So it's a great organization, so folks should check it out.
And folks, check it out at ifconews.org. They have an extraordinary trip that they take to Cuba every year, the Pastors for Peace Caravan. So if you're looking to go to Cuba in 2026, go to ifconews.org and figure out how you can get on the caravan.
I'm also going to plug in the LAM program, because I think it's also one of the strongest show of solidarity with Cuba is being able to bring folks from different communities, working class communities across the United States who are interested in medicine to go not only become physicians, but obviously become better, humane physicians. And the Cuban Revolution through being part of the ILAM, the Latin American School of Medicine. And so we are the stewards of the scholarships that are provided to U.S. students. But those scholarships, again, are for the movement, are for the people of the United States. Right now, applications are open. So when you do go to ifconews.org, please check out those applications for the scholarships and share them with young people that you have in your life.
Oh, absolutely. I have I have 2 family members that are doctors right now because they went to the international school, a renowned international school of medicine, where how much is it that they have to pay for when they go there? All those years of studying? 0, right? So
they pay zero. No money.
$0. Yep. That's Cuba.
No student debt.
No student debt. And become one of the best highly trained doctors in the world.
Yeah.
Now, it has been a week since the arrest of prisoners of war, President Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. What is your take on this, Claudia? Why did this happen, and what is happening right now?
I think, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's a continuation of the very violent and brutal history of US imperialism in this region around the world. I think it's also very important to understand this beyond Venezuela and understand the repercussions that it has, in the region and globally as well. And so what took place was an acceleration that we had not experienced in decades in this region. We had not, experienced having one of the biggest armadas in the Caribbean Sea, like we're seeing right now. We are seeing the reactivation of the military forces in Puerto Rico, for example. We're seeing the coercion of different nation states and mostly in the Caribbean for them to accept this war that is being launched against Venezuela and actually become complicit of it. And so I think, we saw the kidnapping, we saw the bombing that killed over 80 people. I mean, I think that the last count that I heard from the folks in Venezuela was 100. And obviously, when there's a bombing, there's a lot of searching for bodies and there's a lot of people that might go missing, so the count right now is 100. And considering that when they kidnapped President Maduro and Celia Flores, they didn't just come in and out like they're saying, right? Like the US media said, oh, it was such a swift operation. They did it so quickly. And the reality is that they killed Venezuelans and Cubans who were there defending as the security of President Maduro, his safety. And I think, again, in many ways, this is a warning. They did this outside of domestic law. They didn't have to go through Congress to do it. They did it. They did it without, any consideration or any fear of international law, which they broke too. And so what we're seeing is aggression that is mafia style. It's like a gangster type of U.S. imperialism. Like we don't even need to put a mask on it. We're just going to blatantly and openly go kidnap a president, bomb people, bomb fishing boats, because that's how we ended the year as well, like them bombing fishing boats, killing fishermen, and bragging about it on the media. And then coming out on the media again, because, Trump is a thug and so are his people, coming out on the media and saying, actually, we think we're going to do that with Greenland. And as a matter of fact, Mexico needs to watch out and Colombia needs to watch out and Cuba is next. And so I think, there's a lot of different things that we could say, but there's definitely a psychological warfare that's happening. There is the planning and the desire to bring Latin America and the Caribbean to its knee fully, attacking progressive governments. These governments don't even have to be socialist because, if we look at Mexico, Mexico has its relationships with the U.S. and has relationships with the rest of the continent. Is a progressive government, is a government of the people. But the United States would be very interested in actually having more of a dominance over Mexico in terms of its economy and its politics. The same thing with Colombia. And so we are being warned. And in that same vein, I think, Ben, I think we need to be cautious of the fact that these things also connect to what's happening in the United States. I mean, we're seeing the, Border Patrol kind of coming into our communities. This marriage of Border Patrol, of, police departments, ICE, the FBI, launching war on our communities all across this country. Like, it was just a few days after they kidnapped the president and Celia, that they bombed civilians in Venezuela, that they killed Renee Nicole Good. And every video you see is of a woman saying to them, like, I'm not resisting, she even said before he shot her in her face, I'm not even mad at you. And so these people are acting with complete and absolute impunity, and they're letting us know we will go as far as we want, but we need to actually understand that they will go as far as we let them as a people. And the people of the United States have a responsibility. to act collectively, to act in solidarity, to connect the dots between this dual war that's being launched abroad, but also at home. And people are like, you're Puerto Rican. My boricua que tú no hay. Like, you're Puerto Rican, Dominican. I'm Dominican. And you might hear some folks say the same thing we've been told about doing Cuba solidarity work. Oh, but you're not Cuban. Oh, but you're not Venezuelan. But we are living in the belly of the beast. And we can, and we should, and we must hold these capitalist imperialist beasts not only accountable, but like we need to put them in check. That's our responsibility. And if we don't and
Absolutely.
if we don't do that, then we're not doing a service to anyone else. So we need to also fight the narratives, because together with that, psychological warfare, there's this piece of like intervening in different spaces with these narratives that we've been told as people in the United States, as people in different parts of this region, that we should kind of turn a blind eye. Oh, they're strangling Cuba. They've been strangling Cuba for over 60 years. You got to turn a blind eye because they're bad people. They're the evil people. Oh, they're putting sanctions on Venezuela. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. But we're now seeing that whatever they do out there, they're also not going to, they're not gonna stop at the border. They're gonna bring that in.
Oh, absolutely. We have our communities not only filled with ICE and the FBI, military
Yeah.
police. They're sending in the National Guard. I mean, we've been dealing with it. It's only been a year of Trump, only been a year, and there've been 8 countries bombed,
Mm-hmm.
military, police, and National Guard in almost every city. The minute people start protesting and resisting, all of a sudden, the U.S. military and army forces are there working alongside with ICE, working alongside with local police. So this is fascism. This
Yeah.
is, folks, please read what fascism is. Compare Nazi Germany to what's happening in the United States. A president decided to invade a country without any consent from the leaders of this country, the quote unquote political leaders. This
Mm-hmm.
is scary, folks. This
Mm-hmm.
is this is imperial. I love how you said it's like this thuggish imperialism, because
Yeah.
that's what it is.
That's what
It's
it is.
this is this like patriarchal force of power, and everyone says, okay, it's for the oil, it's for the oil. But Claudia, I have a feeling, and I agree with you. It's very similar to your sentiment. I think he's trying to dig his claws into Latin America
Yeah.
and the Caribbean in ways that no other imperialist president has ever done, and it is terrifying. The same night that Maduro is captured, he's talking about, all right, Cuba. You said it, Cuba, Mexico, everyone's next, and
Yeah.
it's when we talk about resistance, Claudia, how do we resist? What do we do in this period of time when sometimes it feels scary to go out there?
I think it's important for us to acknowledge the fact that we don't have the privilege, Ben, to work in silos. We don't have the privilege to only speak like, and I'm speaking as someone who's been involved in the solidarity movement, not only for Cuba, but for Venezuela, for Brazil, for Haiti, other parts of this region, of this amazing continent that we call the Americas, Las Americas, Nuestra America. I've been involved in this movement for many, many years. We, as people who have been involved in that solidarity work, need to do better at connecting the realities of imperialism to the realities of domestic terrorism. We need to do better at being in conversation with people and connecting the dots at, the one of the ways in which I came into movement, just to share in a story, was through the campaigns to free the Puerto Rican political prisoners. And there was a lot of work that was done with the diaspora, not only in New York, but in Chicago and everywhere across the country. A lot of educational work that was done, that actually activated and formed new leaders in that movement. And I think, there's a challenge for us in this moment of building the strength in the spaces where we are. And that means that we need to do the work of organizing. We need to do the work of building campaigns. We need to do the work of educating people, and again, making the connections. And it might have been harder to do 10 years ago, but it's definitely not so hard to do now because there's been the bombing in Gaza, that, the killing, the genocide in Gaza, that a lot of young people have seen and have participated in and have become activated and politicized around. And they can actually talk about US imperialism because of the large mobilizations, the large social media campaigns, the large engagement to demand a ceasefire, all of these different things have politicized people. And so what I'm saying is that, to the question of like, what do? We definitely need to start making connections. There is a Palestinian solidarity movement. What does it mean to speak about what US imperialism is trying to do in this region in relationship to Palestine? And also like looking to Africa, to the alliance of the Sahel. Like what had these folks are coming together, Burkina Faso and other countries, to say we actually we're gonna unite, we're gonna build an alliance. Like, should the people of this continent build stronger ties with each other and build campaigns that are unified campaigns? And I mean that from Venezuela all the way to the Bronx. Like, how do we come to that space where we're actually connecting struggles, where we're educating people on the struggles and building campaigns, building bases for our organization, so strengthening our organizations through that work of organizing? We need to go back to that. And it's important that we don't lose the revolutionary optimism that is there. Like, yeah, I don't know, I'm not gonna curse. I'm gonna try not to, but but it's BS to say that we can't do anything. Like, what would it look for people to shut down the economy? Maybe we all need to get behind a general strike. I mean, people are already talking about striking anyway. Like, the Chicago Teachers Union, they are, the labor in itself has been talking about shutting down the economy. So like, what would that mean for other sectors of society to get behind that? Because that's the only way these people understand. And so, again, I think that there's a lot of work of political education, of organizing, of campaign building, thinking about like, how do we engage with the idea and the work of a general strike, not stopping in any way, shape, or form, like naming this. We have a murderer's system. Yes, Trump is everything we know he is, but he's not coming up in a vacuum, and neither is he a phenomenon. Like, he is the product of a capitalist system. We have to name it. And we also need to name our project. I know, like, I'm a socialist. There might be other folks that are not socialists, but we can't just be like anti-capitalist without having an actual socio-economic project that we proposed. And I learned that from a Puerto Rican that was like, Viva Puerto Rico Libre y Socialista, right? So, so it's like, we need to have a project that is the opposition to the capitalist system in which we live. So there's so many things that we need to tie up, and that are interconnected, and at the root are connected to the economic system that leaves the masses of people powerless, economically feeling incompetent, without the structures and systems necessary to kind of create life and sustain life. And I think there's just a lot of work to do, and we cannot do it in silos. We cannot do it, based on egos, we need to come together, and we need to form a broad coalition of people. So the movement actually needs to reach the masses of people. And that means having a lot of revolutionary patience too. So revolutionary optimism, but also a lot of revolutionary patience, because there are people who are not there yet. They feel in their gut that things are wrong, but rationally, the type of things that come out of their mouth, it's not as, forward as we may want it to be. So we need to have the patience to walk with people, to bring people into spaces, to go into spaces, to learn from people's like self-organization, because that's also another thing. People have been surviving for a long time, and they too have a way of teaching us how to do it. So there needs to be a lot of work. There is a lot of work, Ben, a lot of work to do. And I think with this case in Venezuela, what we're seeing, and I don't know how I'm going to just introduce this here because you might have something to say about this. There's been a lot of people in the left talking about, well, Delcy is not, that betrayal within the government of the Bolivarian Revolution, all these different things. I think we need to stop that. We need to stop coming up with ideas and putting forth narratives that serve the Trump administration and that he himself is putting out. And I've seen a lot of folks in the left, a lot of folks in the movement regurgitating narratives that are divisive. And at this moment, what we can and should do is support the unity, the civic military unity that exists in the Bolivarian Revolution that has allowed them to sustain their revolution. Any comments or any analysis on how Delcy is betraying Delcy this or Diosdado or who God knows who, we need to have the consciousness that these are comrades, and these are comrades that have withstood it and have overcome so many attacks in the past 25 years together. And if we are going to contribute anything from the United States, it's our own internal unity to fight U.S. imperialism. We should not engage in bochinche to then,
And I agree with you. I think right now, I think there's all of the sudden all of this vitriol that's coming out against Delcy. This is an individual that is trying to keep stability in a country that just had their president kidnapped. And let's not pretend that the U.S. government isn't there breathing down her neck and controlling a lot. Because when you hear the narrative coming from the White House, we're in there, we're installing new leadership, we're working with the vice president. Working with the vice president means that they're down her throat, around her constantly.
Of course.
So this whole thing, and what is her job right now? To try to keep some stability in her country that has faced this massive military trauma. I love how you said, yes, the numbers with the people dead. Let's remember, folks, a bombing occurred. Hundreds of people could be dead. They still haven't found bodies. And the countless people that were injured. Because when you blow up buildings, lots of people around those buildings get injured. So there is an instability. There's a trauma that just a military invasion. Come on, let's call it for what it is. The U.S. has just colonized Venezuela. We're not going to pretend that they're not there calling shots, doing whatever it is that they're doing. And all of this is breathing down her neck. And people want to divert the conversation away from the fact that there's 2 prisoners of war in Brooklyn to talk about what Delcy is doing in Venezuela. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's that. It's like there's the attempt of completely invading Venezuela. There's a psychological warfare that's happening to keep people on in high levels of anxiety, not knowing what's going to happen. They kind of showed force, like this is what we can do. And so now people are stressed because they don't know when the next bombing is coming. You have, according to the Constitution, the transfers of power for an interim president to come in, which is Delcy, who's a comrade, again, who's a Chavista, who's a longtime revolutionary, whose father was killed by the right with CIA support in Venezuela. No one else could have or would be in a better position than Delcy to be able to be in this moment. So she has the instability that they are attempting to create, the division that they're attempting to create within the population. And then on top of that, she has the task to negotiate, to be able to bring President Maduro and Celia home. And so we cannot sit from our apartments in New York or Los Angeles or Chicago and build analysis on what Venezuela should and could do. At the end of the day, what they're attempting to do is, one, keep their population safe, because a war with the United States is not something that we want for Venezuela, that we want for Cuba, that we want for any country in this region or the world, because we know the military power that the United States has, and it's not the same. It's like the David and Goliath story. That's what it is. So we don't want that. And so, again, not because we don't have faith in the people, the Bolivarian Revolution. We do have faith in the Bolivarian Revolution, but we cannot wish for them to be massacred. Gaza is an example of what the United States pretends to do all across this world. We cannot sit in our apartments and be like, oh, well, Dulcie, she should be taking these actions. No, 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 no. She will take the necessary actions with the Bolivarian Revolution, which still stands. Because we can't forget that. The narrative of Trump is like, oh, we got them on a hold. And it's okay, yeah, you're putting pressure, but they have not conducted a coup. There is a Bolivarian revolution that still stands. That's still there. There's Bolivarian leadership. There's a Bolivarian people of Venezuela. So let's be clear. It's still there. And what she is doing is defending the people, defending the revolution, and working to get their president back. And that's a lot of work. And the last thing we need is people on this side creating all sorts of divisive narratives to undermine the hard work that our friends, our family, our siblings of Venezuela need to do at this moment.
And it's very easy because we live in first world privilege. So we can sit back in our analysis on our armchairs and say, this is what should be done. You don't have a U.S. military troop all over you. You don't have, and I agree with you, Venezuela is maintaining itself, but it is highly charged. There's so much stress going on. And still, despite all of that, who was the first one to call for Maduro's release? Dulcie. Dulcie gets on the media knowing full well surrounded by U.S. troops and U.S. military presence and still says this was an act of war. We need our president back. So yeah, I agree with you. The armchair revolutionaries, when you're running a country and maintaining stability and you have the U.S. government on top of your back, you tell me how well you do. And again, it's a divisive nonsense because we shouldn't be focused on that. We have what we are at the precipice of something very scary. It could go either way, and it's only January. We have no idea what else is going to be going on with U.S. foreign policy with Latin America. I want to, Claudia, I received an email from IFCO about a meeting on January 14th. Can we talk a little bit about that? Because you're talking a lot about building bases and internationalist perspectives and bringing folks together. So let's talk about it. January 14th, this Wednesday, there's a meeting. Why is it happening?
So we have a mass meeting. Again, our analysis, our understanding is that there is a necessity to be able to connect the dual front war. Because that's what it is a two-front war. There's a war at home and there's a war abroad. And we need to talk about it in those terms. We shouldn't talk about what's happening in our communities across this country without talking about what's happening in Venezuela, the threats, that are being put out against Cuba, against Colombia, Mexico, and the rest of the region. We cannot talk about the ways in which military forces, the National Guard, and all these different, brutal instruments of violence are being put in our community without talking about what's happening in Puerto Rico again. We should take the time to be like, you know what? They do this because they've done it. They've done it. The testing grounds have been, and we could insert the country. the name of the country. So we're having a mass meeting. It's going to be on Zoom. And we're going to be talking about these things, but we're going to also listen to the voices from Venezuela. We have an amazing sister named Sofia, who is part of the Afro-Venezuelan Cumbe group. They've, a lot of them are artists, a lot of them are writers, and a lot of them young people who have been formed within the revolution, who's going to be speaking about the situation in Venezuela on the ground. And we have folks from the Ice Out of New York coalition that are going to be speaking about these attacks that we've been seeing by the ICE agents in our communities. And so we'll be there. We will be engaging in conversations. The idea is that people will leave the space with more information that they could then share with other people, that they will leave with action items. There's, that event on the 14th, but there's an event on the 19th. And for those of us in the East Coast, in New Jersey, making those connections in Venezuela, and the taking the war in our communities, the taking over of our communities by the military. And then there's a huge call, a national day of action for the 20th. And so we want to share more information about that, about mobilizations, organizations that are doing work. Because I think one of the biggest weapons that the system has is our isolation. We're like, life is already complicated when we live under capitalism. We have so many things to take care of. We have so many things to to worry about, in terms of our livelihood, in terms of our families, and that's one thing. And then there's the isolation in doing that. Like we are also told that we need to figure it out ourselves, and we need to start building communities of care, but also communities that politically, form us in a way that allow us to find our courage to do more. And that's political organization. That's what that is. And so we need to build more organization, more collectivity. And these spaces, like the space on Wednesday, the physical spaces that have been formed and the mobilizations that are being called are part of building that community. A lot of people are like, oh, we've been marching, we do this march, we do that, like that doesn't do anything. Well, at the end of the day, there are folks, and we need to remember, that have never been to a march, and they go to one march and they meet 5 different organizations that are there, and somehow they get plugged into one organization, and then they become more mobilized and more organized and do more work. And so we cannot devalue the we cannot put be so cynical, because that's what the system wants us to do. There is a purpose for mobilizations. It's a tactic, it's not a strategy. Our strategy should be building political organizations, building coalitions, building networks, and working within a broad spectrum to be able to gain the power that we need to make the changes that we need. And so Wednesday is just a part of a contribution to that larger picture.
I'm glad we're getting together, that we're touching base. Capitalism and imperialism grows and nurtures off of apathy and lack of education. Mm-hmm. And folks, we need to start building those bridges. We need to start getting educated, and we have to put a stop to these narratives that say, well, you're not part of that community, therefore you mm-hmm. shouldn't say, I don't need to be Palestinian, I don't need to be Venezuelan, I don't need to be Cuban.
That's right.
All I need to be is a human being right. that does not want children to suffer, human beings to suffer, working class people to suffer. The fact that I don't want that, all of that happening, means that I have the ability to voice my opinion and to take action. If we're building this, it's so interesting when you have these conversations with Christians that say, todos somos hermanos y hermanas, we're all brothers and sisters and families, but don't say anything about this because you're not black. Yeah. Don't say anything about this because you're not Palestinian. I'm like, okay, we're family, but we're not supposed to support each other or talk to each other or have opinions. Yeah. My opinion is that capitalism and imperialism are disgusting, destructive, and need to be wiped away. So I'm going to fight that capitalism and stand with Palestinians, with Venezuelans, with Cubans. And it's, that type of division is also how capitalism breeds and grows. Create division, don't care about each other. Nothing is any of your problem up until I come into your community in the Bronx with my ICE agents. Then everyone is like, oh, I need help. Yeah. So we're fighting this together. Claudia, where do we go to get information to be in these meetings, to be in these activities? Where's a website, an IG? Where do we go?
Yeah, so folks could go on Instagram, and I'm gonna have to open my Instagram so I know the handle, because once you reach a certain age, you need to be reminded of.
Well, one thing while we're getting the IG, go to the website ifconews.org. Yeah. That's wonderful. ifconews.org is great. What's the IG?
So the IG is IFCO_pastors for the number peace. So IFCO IFCO_pastors for the number peace. And you could get more information. So the website, the IG are the two most functioning avenues. Yeah.
And wonderful ways to make connections. So, mi gente, this has been your January edition of The Bronze Titan. Thank you so much to my sister, your sister, nuestra familia, Claudia, for joining with us today. Thank you to our listening audience. Thank you for being with us. We're going to do the YouTube commercial. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notifications so you know when the next segment is. I am working hard. I know I'm inconsistent, but I'm working hard to get to 11 more this year, maybe even a couple of extras. Pero como siempre, Cuba sí, bloqueo no to war in Venezuela.